Welcome to episode number 13 of the Eyes on Privacy podcast. I'm Preston Wiley, and I'm joined this week by Keith Watson, who I don't think we've seen for a few episodes. So he's back.
Yay.
And he is actually going to introduce the topic for this podcast.
Okay, so the topic for this evening is really to talk about a piece of software used by law enforcement to basically tap into telephone systems to lawfully record organized crime, members of organized crime, drug trafficking, terrorist activities, that sort of thing. And the software basically is designed to interface with the telephone systems to allow lawful intercept of this type of recording, which means there's a warrant involved and they have the judge's permission to do this, at least in the U.S. This software is made by a company called NICE Systems, based out of Israel, and it is used by lots of law enforcement agencies basically to do their lawful interception. And the problem is that the company that developed this software did not do a very good job. The company, security company called SEC Consult Vulnerability Lab, basically I think they're out of Vienna, Austria. This group reviewed the NICE Systems software. The particular one was called NICE Recording Express, and basically found 9 significant vulnerabilities in the software used. And so this is a big problem, because if your backdoor software has itself backdoors, then those could be exploited by attackers to then go and record anybody, because they don't operate with warrants. And so if they wanted to go and set it up to unlawfully intercept calls, they certainly could do that using any number of these vulnerabilities in the software. So I thought that was interesting. It's kind of an issue that I thought would be interesting to address from a privacy perspective, because we talk a lot about law enforcement use of tools like this, but they usually, at least in the U.S., require warrants to do so. We'll leave out the NSA for the moment, but typically most law enforcement agencies have some sort of warrant required to record conversations. But if the system can be hacked, and then anyone can actually use it to record others, then that's a big significant privacy risk here. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about this and several of the articles that we've posted reporting on this.
Well, I'm looking at the Ars Tech article, and there's a quote in there that basically, I think, sums up the vulnerability, and that is that attackers are able to completely compromise the voice recording / surveillance solution, as they can gain access to the system and database level and listen to recorded calls without prior authentication. Furthermore, attackers would be able to use the voice recording server as a jump host for further attacks of the internal voice VLAN, depending on the network setup. And that kind of sums up the vulnerabilities. I think there were 9 total that were discovered, and that I don't know, that seems pretty egregious to me. I wouldn't want to be doing business with this company.
Right, and there's some significant ones, like they have a root backdoor account. Basically, it's got a fixed password, can't be changed. It's got a lot of unauthenticated access to a lot of the sensitive files and voice recordings that are made. So if there's a lot just sitting on the system that have been recorded already, there's issues with low privileged users being able to gain higher privileges. There's a lot of stuff. There's basic software flaws in a lot of cases. Cross-site scripting, multiple issues there. Go ahead.
Another thing to note in the article as well is that not only do they serve law enforcement agencies, but they also serve forensic investigators, utilities, banks, and healthcare providers. So this might kind of even come into HIPAA, if
Sure.
the recordings of healthcare stuff could be accessed in banks.
Right.
There's sensitive information that you talk about when you call your bank's customer service and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of impact that this could have on the various companies that used their software. So,
Right.
yeah, I think the impact of this could be pretty significant.
Yeah, it's not clear how widespread the use of this particular piece of software is. The marketing materials provided for this are typically listed as small and medium-sized law enforcement agencies. So I'm not sure exactly how it ties together with the telephone system, how they remotely access it, that sort of thing. That's not quite clear from what I've read so far. But just the fact that they've got all these issues does not leave a lot of confidence in the company's ability to secure their basically secure the software that they're selling.
Yes,
It's
and
not
I
it's
don't
not
know
common
how.
software, so it's not like it's something that your average user would have access to, or even average enterprise would have access to either.
Yeah, and I don't know how easily updatable the software is either. If they release a new version, do they have a system in place to update it? Which seems like a commonplace thing these days, but sometimes when you're dealing with law enforcement and government systems and things like that, and it's not a standard thing.
It seems from their list of vendor contact information that they do release a fair number of updates. Now, how quickly those updates get applied is a different matter. But you're right, it's not clear who manages it. Is it the law enforcement agencies managing the software updates? Is it the telecom systems companies?
Yes, that's
It's not
true.
quite clear.
Law enforcement agencies, banks, and healthcare providers aren't always known for their excellent IT departments. So that could definitely be an issue.
Yep. Yeah, I think from a broader perspective, if you look at it from a privacy concern, if I'm the average home user, basically somebody, if they were to attack one of these systems on my local telephone system provider, might be able to record my conversations. They can just say, yeah, any calls to or from this particular phone number, just make a recording of it. So if you're targeted by a group, this could be, somebody could compromise the system using one of these or more of these problems in the system, and then use it to, pick out users that they want to listen in on. What's the likelihood of that? I don't know. Certainly, if you're a well-known individual and if your number is known to others, that might be something they might try. Another issue is a lot of the evidence that a police agency might have collected is available to the attacker. They might tip off the person who's being recorded, or offer to tip them off, or give them, or change the recordings or delete the recordings before the police actually have a chance to collect it as evidence. So there's a lot of concerns here. Another concern is if let's say somebody is charged with a crime and their telephone calls are used as evidence in a case, it is possible that the defense attorneys could argue that the particular version of software that they had was known to have a bunch of flaws in it, and that the evidence on the machine that the police collected could have been planted there. There's a lot of problems here, especially given when you have these vulnerabilities, the trust in the system becomes questionable. And that's true for the law enforcement agencies using it, but also from a prosecution point of view. If you cannot prove that the system that generated the data or collected the voice recordings was secure, then there's a good possibility, assuming the judge understands what point they're making, that evidence could be thrown out due to its unreliability.
Yeah, and one of the mentioned vulnerabilities was the ability for unauthenticated users to access and delete or modify data on the particular with the particular software, which means it's not unfeasible that evidence could be altered in this case. So planted, or altered, or just outright removed, and it leads you to question, whether a criminal could do it, or just a police officer could do it as well. So it throws the whole thing into question. So that's pretty much the key to evidence is, you need to know that it hasn't been tampered with, and this pretty much allows a defense attorney to question if the evidence was tampered with, and that is not good for law enforcement as far as prosecuting anybody that this system was used on.
Yep. Yeah, it does raise a lot of questions, and really that if I were the criminal charged with something, that's the point I'd argue. Could have been
right. Yeah. I mean,
certainly altered. That system's unreliable. You really can't trust it, so you got to throw out that evidence. And that might just be the turning point in the case, right? Everything else is circumstantial. This was hard evidence, but it's unreliable, so it's gone.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's the thing, and I think that it will. I mean, I think law enforcement will be hopefully out to update the software when a fix is released as soon as possible, so that they can avoid that, and they can say, well, yeah, but we updated to the latest version. But then there's still questions. There'll still be questions, and well, just because they updated doesn't necessarily mean there's not still flaws in it.
Well, right. If somebody were to create accounts, it appears that the system stores user accounts through a database. What if they modified that database to add additional accounts that even after you've upgraded the system still remain? So, there's a lot of issues here. You'd have to go back and really audit the configuration and to make sure the system didn't get backdoored by an attacker. So even if you did upgrade the software, there's still several backdoors remaining that were planted there previously. So yeah, a lot of questions.
Yeah, and from and as far as privacy is concerned, I also find it concerning that, as I mentioned, it's also this software NICE also serves other customers other than law enforcement, like banks, healthcare providers, and utilities, which means if I call my bank, somebody could get access to that voice recording where I give my secret information to the bank to get access to my account.
Yep.
Or talk about, give information to the healthcare provider to get access to my account, and the utility company as well, because pretty much if you call, they need to verify you, and they do that based on information which you wouldn't give out to somebody freely, generally.
Yep. Although some people
give that
information out a little too freely.
That's true. That's true. But I don't think you'd want to, and there's a lot of issues as far as privacy goes, and that I can think of related to this. If a criminal wanted to do something to you and they had all the ability to use this vulnerability against you, I can think of a lot of scenarios that would be not good for you.
Yep.
So, as far as that goes, I don't like it, but unfortunately, there's really nothing that we can do about it. We don't even know who uses the software. So,
yeah, I doubt something.
What can we do to protect
generally
ourselves?
Published.
Yeah, I mean, what can we do to protect ourselves from this vulnerability? And the answer is pretty much nothing, I think.
Yep, I think you're right.
So, I mean, companies don't publish what kind of software they use, which means we don't know if I call my bank, I don't know if they're using this software or not. I don't know if my healthcare provider is using it. I have absolutely no idea. And I don't, and they won't, and even if I ask, they'd say I don't know what we're using. So,
well, they probably wouldn't know they had this sort of call monitoring software.
Right. I mean, when you call and you say your call may be recorded for quality service or whatever, whenever you call to a place, and so most places are able to record your calls, but what they use is anybody's guess.
Yeah, I don't know if this is something they would use for that particular use either. So who knows?
Right. I don't know either.
Yep.
But anyway, anything else to contribute to this discussion?
Not on this. No.
Not on this. Anything else we need to talk about?
I wanted to make one just little helpful thing. I've been catching up on some TV watching. And I typically watch Frontline, which is a news program on PBS. And in the last 3 weeks, they've done 2 interesting stories on the NSA, and it's called the United States of Secrets, or United States of Secrets. And there's a part 1 and a part 2. I found that to be very interesting and aggravating at the same time, so I highly recommend, considering we've talked quite a bit about Edward Snowden and a lot of the NSA shenanigans, that a lot of that is summed up, and there's a lot of the politics behind the scenes that were part of that decision-making process. So I'd highly recommend, if you've not seen those 2 Frontline programs, to go check them out. We'll put links in the blog for this episode.
Okay, that does sound interesting. I'll have to check that out myself. All right. Well, if we don't have anything else to talk about, then I'll wrap it up. Thank you, Keith Watson. I'm Preston Wiley, and keep your eyes on privacy.